They say power is all about who you know, but what happens when people judge you before they even know who you are? Some moments define us, pushing us to stand up in ways we never expected. Before we dive into this shocking story, tell us in the comments. Have you ever witnessed an injustice unfold in real time? The flashing red and blue lights cut through the afternoon haze, painting the cracked pavement in a wash of chaos. Natasha Damon felt her stomach tighten, her hands gripping the steering wheel with just enough force to keep them from shaking. She had been here before, not at this exact intersection, not on this particular street, but in this moment, this scenario, this feeling. A police stop. She glanced at the rearview mirror, exhaling through her nose. Officer Rick Coleman was already stepping out of his patrol car, his movements quick, aggressive. His partner, Officer Jake Morris, followed, slower, hesitant, but still complicit in whatever was about to go down. Natasha knew the routine. She had seen enough videos, had enough personal experiences, had enough. Her fingers twitched toward her phone sitting in the passenger seat, but she stopped herself. Not yet. Not yet. A sharp rap on the window. Natasha turned, her expression blank. Not angry, not fearful. Neutral. That was the trick, wasn't it? Don't give them anything to escalate.
License and registration,
Officer Coleman barked, eyes sweeping over her like she was something foreign, something out of place. Natasha reached toward the glove compartment, moving slow. Slow enough for even the most paranoid officer to see she wasn't a threat. Is there a reason I was stopped, officer? You match a description. The words hit like a hammer. Not an answer, not an explanation, just a justification wrapped in something vague enough to excuse whatever came next. Her fingers grazed the small stack of documents, pulling them out with practiced ease. She kept her movements controlled, methodical, handing them over without so much as a sigh. Colin snatched them, glancing at the ID. His smirk was barely noticeable, but Natasha caught it. The recognition. The assumption. What's your business in this area? Natasha blinked. I live here. His eyebrow twitched. That's so. She kept her face unreadable. Is that a problem? Coleman let out a chuckle, flipping through her paperwork. Not a problem. Just making sure everything checks out. Liar. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, stretching it thin. Every second felt like a decision, every breath like it had to be measured just right. Too much, and she was aggressive. Too little, and she was hiding something. Officer Morris shifted slightly behind his partner, his eyes darting between them. Natasha caught that too, a sliver of doubt, hesitation, maybe even guilt. It didn't matter. He wasn't going to stop this. Coleman took a step back, gesturing toward the door. Step out of the vehicle. Natasha didn't move. Why? His smirk deepened. He liked that, the pushback, the game. Because I said so? There it was. Natasha exhaled slowly, forcing her hands to stay steady as she unbuckled her seatbelt. She had choices here. Get out quietly, let them do whatever they were going to do, and pray she walked away intact. Or she reached for her phone. Coleman's stance shifted instantly. Put the phone down. Natasha She didn't rush, didn't make any sudden movements, just scrolled through her contacts like she wasn't standing in the middle of a ticking time bomb. The name Maya was right at the top, just where it always was. Coleman's jaw tensed. I said. The call went through. 1 ring, 2, then a voice, sharp, professional. Mom? And just like that, the entire scene shifted. Silence stretched over the scene, thick and suffocating. Officer Coleman's jaw twitched, his fingers flexing at his sides. The sudden voice on the other end of Natasha's phone shattered whatever illusion of control he thought he had. Mom? Maya's voice was calm but alert, her natural authority laced with an unspoken demand for an explanation. Natasha held the phone up, locking eyes with Coleman as she spoke evenly. I need you to listen carefully, baby. I was just pulled over. Wait. Coleman's smirk faded. Morris took a step back. The tension shifted. Less of an impending storm and more of an unpredictable fire, already sparked and impossible to control. Pulled over? Maya's tone sharpened. By who? Natasha turned her head slightly, still keeping Coleman in her peripheral vision. I don't know them personally, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. One of them is being particularly aggressive. Coleman's fingers curled into fists. Hang up the phone. Now. Natasha ignored him. Where are you? Maya asked, her voice edged with something dangerous. Power. Natasha rattled off the intersection, slow and deliberate. Coleman's expression darkened as he glanced at his partner, but Morris didn't meet his gaze. The younger officer looked uncertain now, as if realizing they had stepped into something much bigger than they anticipated. You're on speaker, just so you know, Natasha added, her gaze unwavering as she studied Coleman. I want full transparency here. Coleman huffed a breath, his eyes narrowing. I don't care who you're calling, lady. Step out of the vehicle now or we'll do it for you. A low chuckle drifted from the phone. Not from Natasha, not from Morris, from Maya. It was the kind of laugh that sent chills down a courtroom, the kind that preceded a verbal dissection so precise it left people scrambling for excuses they didn't know they needed. Officer, Maya said smoothly, do you have probable cause to demand my mother exit her vehicle? The air dropped. Morris visibly tensed. Coleman squared his shoulders, leaning in like he could intimidate the voice on the other end of the phone. I don't need a reason, he snapped. Natasha let the silence breathe for a second before she said, almost conversationally, You sure about that? Very, Coleman snapped. Maya's voice didn't waver. Wonderful. What's your badge number? Coleman blinked. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked at Morris, who quickly averted his eyes. Excuse me? Coleman scoffed, recovering. You heard me. Maya's voice was no longer just calm, it was chilling. Badge number. Name. And since you seem so confident in your actions, I assume you won't mind repeating whatever justification you just gave in a recorded statement for my office. Natasha saw it the moment it clicked, the way Coleman stiffened, the way he exhaled through his nose, the realization slamming into him like a train. He didn't just stop some random black woman on the street. He stopped Judge Maya Bennett's mother. Natasha saw the shift, the calculation running behind his eyes, the mental scrambling, the rapid assessment of exactly how badly he had just messed up. But Coleman was a man who did not like losing. He clenched his teeth, his voice coming out tight. This has nothing to do with everything that happens next, Maya interrupted. Has everything to do with me. For a long moment, no one spoke. The street noise felt distant, like they had been dropped into a vacuum where nothing existed but the weight of Maya's presence over that small speaker. Then Coleman straightened, rolling his shoulders back. He was trying to regain control of the situation, trying to find some way to win this. I'm just doing my job, he said, his voice slower now, forced. Maya's laughter was softer this time, amused, unimpressed. Fascinating, because what I see is an abuse of authority, she said coolly. I see two officers harassing an innocent woman under the assumption that she won't have the means to challenge them. Am I wrong, officer? Coleman's jaw worked, but he didn't answer. Morris shifted, his eyes flicking between his partner and Natasha. He looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. Natasha finally moved, gripping the edge of her door but making no move to open it. I'd really like to know, she added, tilting her head. Was it the car, my skin, or was it just a slow day? Coleman glared at her, nostrils flaring. His fingers twitched at his belt like he was restraining himself from taking things further. That's not what this is, he said, voice tight. Really? Maya pressed. Because I already have your department's internal affairs line ringing on my other phone, and I'd love to tell them how my mother was ordered out of her vehicle without cause. Coleman opened his mouth, stopped. Morris took a sharp breath. Maybe we should... Coleman snapped a glare at him, but it was too late. Morris was already backing up, one hand out in a weak attempt to de-escalate what his partner had escalated. Look, maybe we should just let her go, he muttered, voice unsure. Coleman's face went red, his teeth grinding audibly. Natasha could see the war happening inside his head, the rage at being challenged, the realization that he had walked himself into something unwinnable, the cold, creeping fear that this would not end with just another routine stop. Then, finally, with slow, deliberate movements, he extended Natasha's ID and registration back to her. His hand was so tight around the documents that they nearly crumpled. "No ticket?" Natasha asked dryly, taking them from him. Coleman's eyes burned into her. "Drive safe." Natasha didn't move immediately. She watched him, held the moment, let him sit in it. Let him feel what it was like to be held under scrutiny the way she had been. Then, with a slow nod, she set her phone back down, gripping the wheel. "Thank you, officers," she said, her voice a perfect mirror of the same false politeness they so often used. "It's been enlightening." Coleman turned sharply, storming back toward his squad car, his entire body radiating frustration. Morris lingered for just a second longer, meeting Natasha's eyes like he wanted to say something. Apologize, maybe? But he didn't. Instead, he just turned away, following his partner. Natasha inhaled deeply, held it, released. Her fingers were still wrapped around the wheel, her body rigid with the remnants of adrenaline. But as she watched the patrol car pull away, as she watched Coleman slam his door with barely controlled anger, she finally allowed herself to breathe. And then she picked up the phone again. Maya exhaled on the other end, still holding that sharp edge of restrained fury. "Are you okay?" Natasha let her eyes drift to the rearview mirror, watching the car disappear down the street. "I am now." Natasha sat in her car for a long moment, gripping the wheel, breathing through the lingering tension coiling in her chest. She should have driven off the second the cops left, but something inside her demanded a pause, a moment to process, a moment to let the truth settle in her bones. She had just faced down two officers who fully intended to make her another statistic, and they backed down. Not because they suddenly saw reason, not because they realized their mistake, but because of power, her daughter's power. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head as she finally put the car into drive. The whole thing left a bad taste in her mouth, even with the small victory she had won. This wasn't over. By the time she pulled into her driveway, her phone buzzed. Natasha let the car idle for a second before answering. "Talk to me." Her daughter's voice came through, clipped and direct. Natasha sighed, rubbing her temple. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Natasha smirked, shaking her head. "I mean, I will be. How bad is it on your end?" Maya let out a breath, one that spoke volumes. "I've already contacted their precinct. They're running scared, especially Coleman. I have the police chief's assistant practically begging for a sit-down to resolve the misunderstanding." Natasha scoffed. "Misunderstanding? That's what they always called it when their boys got caught." Maya's voice softened slightly. "Do you want me to push this?" Natasha closed her eyes. Did she? She had spent years watching stories like this unfold on the news, watching people who looked like her get chewed up and spit out by a system designed to never be in their favor. The fact that she walked away unharmed today felt like an anomaly. But walking away wasn't enough. She thought about all the people who wouldn't have had a call to make, who wouldn't have had a daughter with a name that made men like Coleman stop in their tracks, who wouldn't have had any leverage at all. She couldn't let this slide. "Push it," Natasha said firmly. Maya didn't hesitate. "Consider it done." Natasha hung up, finally stepping out of her car. The evening air was cool against her skin, but she barely noticed. She made her way inside, locking the door behind her, exhaling as she leaned against it. One battle won. But war was coming. 2 days later, Natasha woke up to chaos. Her phone was buzzing off the nightstand, the sound of notifications piled on top of each other, an endless stream of texts and missed calls. She groggily reached for it, her heart rate spiking when she saw the screen. News alert. Viral video sparks investigation into local police misconduct. Inbox. 17 unread messages. Missed calls. Maya 4. Howard 2. Unknown number 3. She barely had time to process before another call came through. Maya, Natasha answered immediately. What happened? You happened, Maya said, and there was something in her voice, not just anger, not just frustration. What? Natasha sat up, swinging her legs over the bed, already dreading the answer. It's everywhere, Mom, Maya continued. Someone recorded the stop. The whole thing. Natasha's breath caught. She should have expected that. In this day and age, a police interaction in broad daylight, of course someone had pulled out their phone. But hearing it confirmed sent a new wave of reality crashing over her. It's been shared over 500,000 times, Maya continued, and counting. Natasha's stomach clenched. And what exactly is it showing? Maya's voice was measured, but Natasha could hear the storm raging beneath the surface. It shows everything. Coleman demanding you out of the car, you making the call, the exact second he realized who I was. Natasha closed her eyes. Of course it did. It's bad, Maya admitted, for them. Natasha let out a slow exhale. And what does that mean for us? Maya didn't miss a beat. It means the department is in full-blown damage control. They released a statement calling it an unfortunate miscommunication, but people aren't buying it. The community is pissed. Natasha stood, pacing toward the window, peering out at her quiet street. It didn't feel real. She was used to seeing other people's names trending, other people's faces making headlines. Never hers. What's the play here? She finally asked. Maya's voice was cool, calculating. I have a meeting with the police chief this afternoon. They want me to ease public concerns. Natasha's lip curled. Meaning they want you to make this go away. Exactly. Natasha shook her head. And what do we want? There was a long silence before Maya answered. Change. It was one word, but it carried weight. Natasha swallowed hard. She thought about every humiliating moment, every sharp-edged interaction that left her feeling like she had to prove she belonged in her own skin. She thought about how different things would have been if she had been just Natasha Damon, an everyday black woman, and not Natasha Damon, the mother of Judge Maya Bennett. She thought about all the people who wouldn't have walked away like she did. Change. Then let's get it, Natasha murmured. Maya's tone was steel. Then you need to be ready, Mom, because this isn't just about you anymore. Natasha already knew that, and she was ready. Natasha sat at the long oak table, her back straight, hands folded neatly in front of her. Across from her, the police chief shifted in his seat, his fingers tapping restlessly against the file in front of him. The air was thick, tense. No one wanted to be the first to speak, but Natasha had already decided she wouldn't be the first to fold. To her right, Maya sat poised, her presence sharp and commanding, like a blade waiting to strike. The chief finally cleared his throat. Mr. Damon, Judge Bennett, let me start by saying we regret what happened. Maya held up a hand. Chief Reynolds? Don't waste our time. Reynolds swallowed, his lips pressing into a thin line. I understand the concerns here. The video has, well, it's complicated things. Natasha exhaled through her nose. Complicated. That was a word they always used when they didn't want to say exposed. Maya's voice was even. What's complicated about it? 2 of your officers violated protocol, harassed my mother, and only backed off when they realized they had made a career-ending mistake. What part of that is unclear. Reynolds' gaze flicked toward Natasha, as if she might be the more forgiving one. He was mistaken. She let the silence stretch before speaking. "Tell me something, Chief. If my daughter wasn't who she was, what would have happened to me that day?" Reynolds' fingers twitched against the file, but he said nothing. "We both know the answer," Natasha continued. "I'd be in jail, or worse." Reynolds exhaled sharply, leaning forward. "Mr. Damon, Maya cut in. "Here's the deal, Chief. You want this to go away quietly? You want the department to stop bleeding in the press? Then here's what's going to happen." She pulled a single sheet of paper from the folder in front of her and slid it across the table. Reynolds hesitated before picking it up, his eyes scanning the list. Natasha watched the color drain from his face. "This is—" He trailed off. "A list of demands," Maya finished smoothly. "Non-negotiable." His jaw tightened. "You want both officers fired?" Natasha met his gaze. "I want Coleman's badge melted down and turned into a cautionary tale." Reynolds exhaled through his nose. "And Morris?" Maya shrugged. "If you want to spare him termination, he'd better be prepared to testify against his partner. Otherwise, he's gone too." Reynolds set the paper down. "These reforms, they're a lot to push through." Maya smiled. It wasn't warm. "Then I suggest you push hard." Reynolds looked between them, weighing his options. Finally, he sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'll take this to the board," he muttered. Maya leaned back in her chair, satisfied. "You do that." Natasha stepped out of the station, the weight in her chest lighter than it had been in days. The sun was setting, casting long golden streaks across the pavement. Beside her, Maya let out a slow breath. "That went well," she said. Natasha laughed dryly. "Depends on your definition." Maya smirked. "Mom, they folded like cheap cards. You know how rare that is?" Natasha shook her head, but there was a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "You did good, baby." Maya looped her arm through hers, squeezing gently. "So did you." Natasha let her gaze wander, taking in the city around her, the sidewalks, the cars, the people moving through their lives. It had always been this way. Always. But for the first time, she didn't feel like just another black woman who had to swallow injustice and keep it moving. For the first time, she felt like something changed. Maybe not the world, not yet, but something, and that was a start.